All right, so we have seen some examples of block ciphers. Some of them were Facedal, like Height and Calafia, and present was an SPN cipher. So what are the pros and cons? For the Facedal cipher, the pros are as follows. Encryption algorithm is identical to the decryption algorithm. Only the order of the round keys change. So you only implement the cipher once. It provides you both encryption and decryption. Oh, this is not the case for SPN. Since you're going in one direction, in the decryption part, you have to go backwards. So you have to implement inverse of every operation. For instance, if you have the S-box, at the decryption, you have to have the inverse S-box and so on. But the good thing with the SPN is that a single round affects the whole input. We call that in the Facedal, we are not modifying half of it, but the one half is modified. So maybe it might produce better confusion and diffusion. The cons are the same as I mentioned. So, design considerations for different platforms. Hardware implementations can easily work on bits. As you can see in present, we had the bit permutations because it is specifically designed for hardware. Since most programming languages focus on bytes, bit operations are more costly on software. So if you implement present in software, you will see that it takes a lot of time to take one bit and move it to another place and so on. In the hardware, it is just a single instruction. Okay. But since our programming languages and software focus on bytes, byte operations are a lot easier for us. So for this reason, Calafia is also in the standard and it is fast on software. Cipher design also determines the number of gates required to perform encryption on hardware. Number of gate equivalents determine the area required. Code size or required memory is not a big problem for software implementations due to fast CPUs and large RAM. So think about our computers. We have gigabytes of memory, gigahertz of CPU cores. So we don't care about the memory code size and so on. But if you are dealing with a small device, the code size will be really important. Okay. Also the memory you use. And also, if you consider security versus speed, speed is generally measured as throughput. Adding more security measures, for instance, increasing the number of rounds or adding more operations like matrix multiplication or more to make it more secure, increases security but reduces the speed. Right? This is why we are always trying to keep the round function as minimal as possible, have minimal operations for confusion layer and the diffusion layer. But ciphers performing well on hardware or software may not be suitable for constrained devices like RFID systems or sensor networks due to limited memory, battery, or computational power or memory. Yeah, I said memory again, sorry. Hence, we also need lightweight ciphers. This is the whole reason. So NIST actually says that use AES everywhere if you can. If you cannot use AES, just use a lightweight cipher. And for this reason, they just elected ASCOM as the winner of the competition. We are going to talk about the standards in a few slides. But before that, we have to talk about the key size, right? Because in some designs, we have seen that there are 80-bit keys. In the past, that has 56 bits. So question is, what should be the key size? Because when people talk about lightweight designs, they think that the key size should be small. So they design ciphers like which have 64-bit keys and so on, which are actually not secure. So why they're not secure? It depends on the current technology, the speed of our devices. So let's talk about them. An attacker that captures a single ciphertext can try to decrypt it with every possible key to check if it provides a meaningful plaintext, right? So here you are performing a brute force attack or exhaustive key search attack. All right, in better scenario, you capture a plaintext block and the corresponding ciphertext block. You actually encrypt this plaintext block with every possible key and check if the ciphertext you obtain is the same, the one you captured. So exhaustive search is a generic attack. In other words, it is valid for every cipher. Here you are not using any weakness in the cipher. Here you are focusing on the key. So if the key is k-bit, then the attacker is required to perform at most 2 to the k encryptions or decryptions, right? Thus, security of a block cipher is upper bounded by exhaustive search. In other words, 2 to the k encryptions. This quantity is referred to as time complexity. So if you find a weakness in a cipher, there you are trying to break the cipher with less operations than 2 to the k encryption, because you can always break it with 2 to the k encryptions, right? So how hard is the exhaustive search? I told you that DES has 56-bit secret key. So this means that there can be at most 2 to the 56 different keys. So this is your key space. You can try them one by one. And this is the number of keys you have to try at the end of the day. If you're unlucky, you get it in your last try. But since these are exponential values, when you move on to present 80 bits, then this is the number of keys that you can have. Okay, so your hardness increases exponentially. Here, 128 bits. This is supported by AES, but also height and Cipher, as we mentioned just now. But if you move on to 192 bits, recall that Cipher supports this. Also, Cipher and AES also supports 256-bit keys. So as you can see, the numbers increases really fast. And in order to realize how big these numbers are, in the observable universe, the number of atoms you see actually are something similar to this. So in order to break the cipher with the exhaustive search, you have to perform one encryption for every atom in the observable universe. As you can see, this is not that easy. And the question is, but for the short keys, how easy is it, right? So what can I do? Actually, there are devices you can use. CPUs are the easiest thing you can get because everybody has a computer right now or mobile phone, etc. And it comes with many cores. You can implement these ciphers and perform brute force attack using all of your cores. But the good thing is that GPUs are really good at performing parallel operations. And this is an embarrassingly parallel operation because one core performs the encryption operation with a different key, and the other core do the encryption operation with different key. And these cores doesn't need to communicate with each other. This is why I'm telling that it is embarrassingly parallel. And GPUs are really good right now. The current best GPU on the market for a consumer grade GPU is RTX 4090 at the NVIDIA series. And it comes with more than 16,000 cores. All of them clocked at 2.5 gigahertz, which is a fantastic speed, right? Faster than most of the supercomputers that people had like a few years ago. Okay, it's really nice. In 10 years ago, that speed, you wouldn't dream of having it on your desktop to play video games. Okay, FPGAs, these are the hardwares, but it requires a little bit expertise. In some scenarios, they beat GPUs, especially if the algorithm doesn't need much memory. FPGAs can be better than GPUs and also might be energy efficient compared to GPUs. But once you have a very good hardware design and burn it into silicon and make it application specific, so these are general purpose devices. One day you can run Present on this FPGA and another day you can run Cipher. But once you decide the hardware and burn it into silicon, that device can only perform that operation. Like think about Bitcoin miners. They have a very nice SHA-256 optimizations, and they can only do that purpose. They cannot do anything else. But once you burn it into silicon and obtain an ASIC, now it is super fast and energy efficient. So GPUs cannot compete with them in this point. So if you have such a device designed to break these things, actually 80 bits is not that hard. Okay, so for a GPU, I can achieve 2 to the 35 or similar encryptions depending on the design of the cipher in a second. 2 to the 35 encryptions per second is a huge speed. So think about this here. A year is around 2 to the 24 seconds or something. So actually, with a single GPU, I can break this with a single GPU in less than a year. But if you have thousands of GPUs, you can break this one in a few days. If gamers get together on the internet, they can break this in seconds or minutes. Okay. Instead of playing World of Warcraft, assume that you are using your GPU power to attack this. So 80 bits also really at the edge, because if you have billions of GPUs, you can perform an exhaustive search attack to break this. This is why we recommend you to use 128-bit security for personal use, which would provide you security for years. But if you want hundreds of years of security, then you need military-grade security and move to this. Okay. So one question. So assume that our computational power is really nice, and I'm using every computational device in the world, and assume that I can perform 2 to the 80 encryptions per second. Okay. So I can break 80-bit ciphers in a second. Even if I can do that, I mentioned that there are like 2 to the 24 seconds in a year. So in order to break this, even in that scenario, I need like 2 to the 24 years, which is like 16 billion years, right? So this is why this exponential increase makes things really hard. So there's no need to live at the edge and think that you are secure. But here, you can feel confident that if technology doesn't change in a very dramatic way, then you would be secure, and it won't be easy to break this key length by brute force. If the cipher has a weakness, of course, you can break that cipher. But otherwise, with brute force, these parts are secure. So there is no need to design a lightweight cipher with 80-bit keys, because it only provides you short security. But the definition of short there is, not clear, right? How short it is. Is it days or is it hours or minutes? It depends on the capacity of the attacker. And its capacity increases day by day because technology increases day by day, right? Okay, one question about, again, cipher designs. How many runs a cipher should have? Because when I talk about ciphers, I told them they have different number of runs, right? Because Present has 31 rounds, Cipher had 18 rounds, etc. So if I design a round function for my cipher, how many rounds should I choose, right? The thing is that there is no direct or scientific answer for this. The common belief is that increasing the number of rounds increases the security, of course, because you're performing more operations. But this also decreases the performance. So you are trying to find a sweet spot where you have good security and good performance. A common practice is as follows. Designers apply every known cryptanalysis techniques they know, and if they can break n rounds at most, then they choose the round number RS R greater than equal to 2n to stay on the safe side. Because attacks always get better. If you can break n rounds, somebody will come up with a clever idea and they will break n plus 1 rounds. So why design something like n plus 1 rounds if you can break n rounds, right? This is why they try to choose R a little bit higher than this value so that they stay on the safe side. So let's look at some standardized block ciphers. I mentioned already some of them. At the ISO side, there are many block ciphers. This is triple DES. And AES are on both sides. So at NIST side, NIST actually had 3 block ciphers: AES, triple DES, and skipjack. Skipjack is designed by NSA, and it has 80-bit key. So, and NIST doesn't approve 80-bit key. So they say that you can only use skipjack for legacy use, backward encryption. If you encrypted something like 10 years ago with skipjack, yeah, you can use it, but they doesn't allow to use it for new purposes. They said that they will allow 112-bit security until 2030, but all of a sudden, a few years ago, in one document, they said that they will remove triple DES from their standardized block ciphers, and they said that they will allow it until 2024. As you can see, only a few months left. So at the NIST side, we have only AES, and NIST didn't have any lightweight standard, but at the ISO side, we had 3 standards: Present, Cipher, Leia. We talk about Present and Cipher already. Present is hardware-specific design. Cipher is software-specific design. So there were actually only these 2, but later they added Leia, I think around 2015 or something. The good thing is that none of these algorithms are patented, so they're free. You can just read the document, implement it, and use it without even saying that you are using it. Okay, this is why everybody is using AES. In Signal, WhatsApp, you are using end-to-end encryption using AES. In Zoom, right now we are using AES 256, and the AES is responsible for 99% of the encryption in the whole world. So this is why NIST says that although they have now 2 standard block ciphers, AES and ASCON, they are saying that use AES if you can. If you cannot, then consider using ASCII. Okay. So let's finish with some problems that can occur when we use block ciphers or symmetric key encryption algorithms. Problem one is key management. Keys must be exchanged between the communicating parties before they can use the block cipher. To communicate with M people, one has to securely exchange keys, right? So key management and key sharing is a problem. Think about your sensors. Assume that you have 100 sensors and you put secret keys in 100 of them, different keys. Then you spread them on the field. But at some point, you realize that the secret key is leaked. Now you have to get all of these devices back, put a new secret key, and put them back on the field. So it is not easy if you do it physically. So you should come up with a good way to update the key on the device, right? So this is one of the problems we have at IoT side. In general sense, we have solutions to this, like you can use public key encryption algorithms like RSA Algama, but they are slower than block ciphers and they're not suitable for, light constrained devices. You can use key exchange algorithms like Diffie-Hellman key exchange and so on. But again, your device should be capable enough to perform those operations. Second problem, key storage. This is a real problem. Storing keys directly on the hard drive or RAM can be a problem because if there's a virus in your system, they can capture this information, right? Having a USB stick, a thumb drive, and putting the secret key in it is a nice solution. This is what we do in electronic signatures. You have a USB drive, and there's a SIM card in it which has your secret key, and you use it to encrypt things. So the key doesn't never leave that USB drive. You instead send input to it, and it performs the cryptographic operations on it, and then gives you the result without leaking the key from there. But this is a very open problem, and you have to deal with it. Third problem is message length hiding. Plain text and corresponding ciphertext lengths are identical in block ciphers. If the adversary knows the context of the communication, then they can guess the plain text just by the ciphertext length. This is important, and you have to keep that in mind. If your context is really clear, it doesn't matter if you're performing encryption or not, because just by looking at the ciphertext length, people might be obtaining some information. So here's a basic example I always use. For instance, some websites encrypt the forms filled by the users, but the remaining parts sent unencrypted. So an example from a medical form can be like, did you ever have a surgery? If yes, provide details. So this question goes as plain text, but your answer goes as encrypted. But if the answer to the question provides a short ciphertext, namely one block, then most probably the answer was no, right? Because it is short. But if it is longer than one block, this means that you answered as yes, then because you explained what kind of surgery you had. So you have to come up with a solution. One solution is adding random bits to the plain text before encryption to hide message length. Of course, this solution causes more data to be transmitted. And in the lightweight world, this might be a problem, right? Finally, key generation. This is the most important part. We say that to obtain k-bit security, the k-bit key should be generated randomly. So this means that you need to have a very nice random number generator. So that way you can be sure that it is secure. Because if your random number generator is bad, for instance, maybe you are generating 128 bits, but first 64 bits are always zero due to an implementation bug or somebody put a backdoor, okay? In that scenario, you only get 64 bits security, not 128. And this is a nice place to put backdoors. And agencies always try to put a backdoor in your random number generator, so they don't break the encryption algorithm. They just can easily guess which key you use because your random number generator is weak, okay? Of course, there are some solutions. If you have cryptographically secure random number generators, then it is nice. But of course, you have to check statistically if they're really secure. Or you can use password-based key derivation algorithms. In that scenario, you choose a strong password and you perform hash operations thousands of times on this input to provide the random looking output and use it as a secret key. Okay.